Okay.
Like listen to. So yesterday, I was up in Polk County, and I stopped at the Amish place. Have you been there in a while?
Well, a couple months ago, Brenda and I were there. We went with our neighbors, Dennis and Paul Duncan. Paul used to be the dean of students at Lee. You might remember him.
I don't know him.
And then his wife was over the city speech therapy for a period of time. But we went up there together, and I guess on that day we got some onions, and we actually went up there. I think we looked at honey, whether we got some honey or not, I don't remember. But we go there every once in a while. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because my neighbor, Dan Hayden, Dan lives right behind North Lee on Apache Trail. And Dan said the place to go is Tellico. He said there's an Amish place up at Tellico that really has an abundance of vegetables, fruit, and said that's really a larger place and a nicer place to go. So, yeah, I have been there, and I enjoy going out there.
They have a lot of stuff. It says Star canned from Star Mountain Cannery, I guess. So maybe isn't that close to Tellico? Star.
I'm not sure.
I think it's close.
It may be. One thing that struck me out there that they have at Delano is make sure you're properly dressed.
It says that.
Did
It
you
says
see
that.
Yeah,
and I had shorts on. But
Yeah.
I've been going. I went on like a Thursday morning, 8 o'clock. There wasn't anybody there, so you could just walk in and get whatever you wanted.
Wow.
I got a jar of sauerkraut, which I'm not a big sauerkraut eater, but I just got it and been eating it ever since.
It's good, huh?
It is good.
How about chow chow? Are you a chow chow?
I'm a chow chow guy. Yeah. But the sauerkraut was good, and of course I always get tomatoes and they've got honey.
Right.
So I don't know if they're cheaper than the regular restaurant. I guess they are, aren't they?
You know, I don't know that they're cheaper. It's fresh, and we know that they raised it right there on their farm. Now, the last time we were there, a couple months ago, we went back in the Amish area, back where they live. Have you ever driven?
I did
back
that,
in there?
and my phone started ringing. Next thing I knew, I was back out on the road. So
Okay, we went back all through there, and I think the thing that was most striking to all of us were these huge tanks, and they were water tanks. They stored their water from the creek. They were huge tanks, and most of the houses had at least one. Some had more than one. But that's how it's a water reservoir. And it was great. I enjoyed going back to most dirt roads.
Dirt roads.
Back through there. And their livings, their homes were very meager homes, not a Dee Burris construction home.
No, well, nobody's is.
Right. Anytime a man can put on his phone, let's see, Dee Burris, don't call me for work until 2021. I'm busy. August 2021, yeah.
It's the Trump economy.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So, Dale, I'm sure you don't remember expelling me twice from school.
Well, I'm telling you, you probably deserved it. Dee.
Probably did.
I don't know.
I was hoping we'll skip over that part. But
when did you graduate? What year?
84.
84.
Yeah.
So
same
you
year
and
as
Richie.
Richie. Yep.
You and Richie graduated in 84.
84.
And then Brian Beard graduated in 85.
85.
And he was president of the class in 85.
What's Richie doing now?
Richie has started, Richie took over the hotel.
I remember that.
Holiday Inn Express. And Brenda and I stepped away and said, go for it. And he had a gentleman come by, not once, not twice, but 5 times from Dalton, Georgia, and said, I want this hotel. The hotel's not for sale at all. No sign. not for sale at all. But he offered a price, and the hotel did sell, and Richie walked away from it and started working with a church in Greenville, South Carolina. John Gray is a pastor. John Gray is a black gentleman that has a congregation of about 4,500 to 5,000.
Small congregation.
Yeah, small congregation. So Richie started working with him and did the business part of the church for him, and was traveling back and forth. And then he was hired in Chattanooga, Reverend Kevin Wallace. You remember Tennessee Temple, down on Bailey Street. They have 20 buildings there. And Tennessee Temple went out of business, mainly, and this is my opinion, and I'll share it because when I was coach at Lee and athletic director at Lee, we played them often, but they never did get Southern Association of Colleges and Schools certified. So therefore, the people that were taking courses there, when they went to transfer their courses, and Glenn would know about this, went to transfer their courses, it didn't mean anything because they weren't certified by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. So people were leaving them in droves, and the school attendance went way down after Dr. Lee Robertson died. He was the president. It's kind of built around him. So what happened after they moved their school outside of town, Chattanooga, and on Piedmont, I believe it's on Piedmont Street, the whole facility came up for sale. So Kevin Wallace bought that facility, and now he has his church there. And Richie is his executive pastor. They have a school there, kindergarten through 12. And they have a lot of staff. They run about 1,500. They have over 2,000 members, but they run about 1,500 when COVA is not in effect. They've been running, they just went back to church. They've been running 600-700 lately. But Richie is the executive pastor and takes care of the business of that church.
He doesn't preach there.
He preached last Wednesday night. Yes, he does do some preaching. Yeah. So he does not often. Kevin Wallace is a premier preacher, is excellent, and Richie does once in a while fill the pulpit, especially if Kevin's gone on another venture.
Hey, didn't he write a piece in the newspaper? Wrote a book?
Yeah, he wrote a book.
What was the name of that book? I remember. I can't remember.
Yeah, he wrote a book, actually, Go Here, Leave Here, Go Anywhere. Help me, Brenda.
Start here, go anywhere.
Start here, Start here, go anywhere.
Yeah. It was a pretty good book.
It's a very good book, and he's done well with the book, especially several years ago. Start here, go anywhere.
You know, it's really something. He's done real well, I know. So, Dale, are you originally from Ohio?
Canton, Ohio. You know, Canton is where the Hall of Fame is for the football. And I graduated from high school in Canton, Ohio. And when we played football, we played in Fawcett Stadium. That's where the Hall of Fame is, at Fawcett Stadium. And we had 4 high schools, and so 2 high schools would be out of town, and then 2 high schools would play during the football season, one on Friday night and one on Saturday night. And I went to a high school called Canton Lehman, and Canton Lehman now is a middle school, but great athletics in that state. I'll tell you something interesting, Dee. 6 miles away is Massillon, Ohio. Glenn's probably heard of Massillon. Massillon has the most prolific football program in the country for high schools. When a male baby is born, they put a football in the crib. Every male baby that's born has a football put in the crib. In other words, we got another star coming up, you know. But it's kind of neat. We played Massillon each year, and generally we came home.
So you were a football.
I played football and I played basketball.
Was your family from Canton, Ohio?
My family's from Georgia, from Calhoun, Georgia.
You mean just right down the road?
Irwin, Georgia. Yeah, that's where my parents were born, in Irwin, Georgia, and which is right outside of Calhoun. But then my dad worked at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, was a foreman in Akron, Ohio, and when he was about 25 years of age, felt a call to the ministry. So he went into the ministry and went to Canton and pastored a church on the other side of railroad tracks, a very lower socioeconomic strata area. And he pastored that church for a while, and his church grew and grew and grew. So he went over to 9th and Gibbs Street in Canton, Ohio, and built a church, a brick church. And he was part of the building crew. He had skills like you. He could lay block and he could lay brick, and he got other members in the church who were contractors, and they built that beautiful church, and it grew, and it was a place where I went to church all through elementary, middle school, and high school.
Do you remember him as a guy that worked at the tire place, or do you remember him as a preacher?
I wasn't born when he worked at the tire place.
So as far as you remember, he was a preacher.
He was a preacher. I didn't know about my dad, and I wasn't born at that time. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and they could tell you about him as a Goodyear tire and rubber man, as well as a minister. So, but that was before my time. I was late in life. I'm not real sure I was supposed to be here. My mom was in her 40s, so that you know,
probably an accident.
Yeah,
right?
that's probably true.
But how did you get to Cleveland? Because you've been here as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I've been here. I'm old.
Are you still in your 60s?
I think I am. I'm not real sure my exact age, Dee. My wife will tell you I kind of hold off on that. But anyhow, yeah, I came. Here's what happened to me. I was a better basketball player than a football player, and I went to Kent State University, which is only 20 miles away. Canton and Akron are close. So I went to Kent State on a basketball scholarship. And at Kent State, I got involved in a fraternity, and I was doing some things that my dad was not, just wasn't pleased with. So he said, tell you what, son, said, you're not going back to Kent State. And I said, well, you know, I've got a scholarship, and I'm doing all right athletic. He said, it doesn't matter. You're not going. And he said, the only place I'll help you is Lee College. If you'll go to Lee College, said, I'll help you.
Now, what was his tie to Lee College? Just Church of God, or?
It was a church school, yeah. So let me tell you, this is something. I am so glad you went this route. But I was not doing well, not living right, and not, you know, I'd wrecked his car up there.
Were you headed in the absolute wrong direction?
I was headed in the wrong direction, and when you join a fraternity, everything you have centers around kegs and things of that nature, and I was involved in that. So my dad said, I'll send you to Lee College, and I'll pay for the first semester. So that's where I ended up.
What did you think? Cleveland, Tennessee?
I didn't want to. I didn't want it at all. But let me tell you what's worse than that. I know you had Paul Kahn here at one time. Let me tell you what's worse than that. By the time we decided, this was in March, my dad told me this. In August, we had a church assembly and my brother Ray was appointed president of Lee College. So I'm coming to a college, and my brother's the president. He was gone before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
He'd already left the house.
You didn't even know him, I guess.
I didn't know him well. He come home at Christmas time, and maybe drop in. He was headed to wherever, Michigan or wherever it might be, and he might drop in and spend the night with us. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know him at all. Well, I had a very nice 1958 Plymouth, red bottom and a white top that I'd worked. I did work in the summertime, and my dad helped me some with it.
Was it a stick shift?
No, it wasn't stick shift. It was automatic. It's called a Bel Air.
Bel Air.
A Bel Air,
Mm-hmm.
and boy, it was nice. Mm-hmm. So I came, it's a Bel Air or Belvedere. Anyhow, I came to Lee with that car. And my brother said to me, Dale.
Now, what year was this?
This was in 1960 or 60-61 school year.
Okay.
So I come, and he says, you can't, as a freshman, you can't have your car here. And I said, well, I didn't know that. I said, there are other freshmen here with cars. Well, he was afraid I'd get in trouble. He kind of knew my past,
yeah.
So he said, you can't have your car. I said, well, I'll go home. I'm not staying. So bottom line, he changed his mind, and I was able to keep my car. So I had that very nice car on campus there, and this was his first year as president. So it was a new experience for me. I got acquainted with him as my brother, and of course he's very busy at that time. He was in our church. He was a premier preacher. He was sought after to speak at conventions, camp meetings, and things of that nature. So they called on him a lot, and he did a lot of traveling. And then once a week or twice a week, he'd speak in chapel. At Lee, we had to go to chapel at that time. And we got acquainted and became good friends.
What was your field of study?
My field of study was education. I was going into education, and
now, how did that mesh with the guy that's wrecking cars and?
Well, I knew I wanted to go to college, and I was at Kent State studying, and
for education.
Well, I didn't know what direction I was going. I was taking the basic courses that I could use wherever I ended up. I didn't know I would end up at Lee College, but I did basic education, and I had a minor in Christian education. At Lee, which everybody has to have at least 18 hours Christian education. And then from there, I went to University of Tennessee, and I got a master's degree.
So you were because that was only 2 years at the time, right?
No, it was 4 years. When I was there, it was 4 years.
At Lee College?
At Lee College.
Okay.
I went 4 years and went to University of Tennessee and got a master's.
So you were okay with school?
After I was there for a semester, I loved it.
Did you work while you was here?
Oh, yeah.
Where at?
I had 3 jobs.
Where?
I had 3. I worked at the Banner. I filled those racks and would go collect the money, And I'll tell you one thing. My wife, and I had a little triumph after we were dating. She is from Nashville. And we were dating. And
also from Lee College?
From Lee, okay. When she came to Lee. And I was working at the Banner, and it snowed. And I had to go out to all these different racks and put the papers in. And it's pretty good snow for Cleveland, several inches. And at that time, I had a white Triumph convertible. Mm-hmm. So I had Brenda in the car with me. Well, I was from Ohio, And I knew how to drive in snow, I thought, you know, and so I was showing off and would do curlicues and all that stuff, you know, in the car. And it scared her.
That's what your brother was trying to prevent, I guess.
Probably so, yeah. You're right. But anyhow, I worked at the Banner, and then I in a dormitory, I had a suit in my room. I sold suits and socks and shirts.
Where'd you get them from?
Bremen, Georgia.
So they.
I go to Sewell Company, Sewell, Sewell Company, maybe 2 L's. But anyhow, Roy Sewell's company, and I bring back suits, and the guys from the college there that were at Lee would buy them. So, and then there's an Ed Mann's store down on Macaulay that sold socks. You ever heard of Ed Mann's?
No.
He had socks down there, and I go down and buy them by the bundles, you know, dozens of them, and sell socks and shirts. And then I got into the tie business. I would order ties, you know, and get. But anyhow, I sold a lot of suits during my time at Lee to the guys that just come to my room and would buy them. And then I worked at Miller's. You know where
They're at the old village.
Alan Jones' office is at Miller's.
I remember going
And
to Miller's.
I did, during my time at Lee, I'd go into Miller's and work like a 4-hour evening, whatever it might
Salesman?
be. Yes, in the men's department. And I worked there while I was at Lee. And then, as an athlete, I got $42 a week working as assistant coach to my coach, Dr. Hubert Black. So I got $42 a week there. So I was hustling.
Yeah, sounds like
I was, and you know, different times I had 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, according to what I could work in. But I stayed busy.
Who was running the Banner at that time?
At that time, Goldie Wattenberger, I guess. No, it may have been the owner of the Banner, who later on lived across the street from us, and but Goldie then later became the publisher, and he was there for a long period of time. But
Were you there when Goldie came there?
I was not working there. I was in town here when Goldie came and got acquainted with him. And, you know, Goldie was a different type person.
Yeah, very different.
But I kind of liked him because you knew where you stood.
There wasn't any question.
And he just tell you like it is. And I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
But I became acquainted with him and was in a lot of different meetings. When I was principal at Bradley, I was there 21 years, and had a lot of times that I would run into Goldie and different type meetings, that type thing.
So tell me about University of Tennessee.
University of Tennessee was a situation where I was traveling back and forth, getting my degree to Cleveland, and then you know in order to get your master's degree, you had to spend at that time, you had to do your dissertation and thesis, they called it, dissertations for the doctorate. And I had to stay up there 1 semester. So I stayed up there 1 summer and worked on my thesis, and I had a committee. Dr. Raymer was the head of my committee, and I had to present everything I wrote to him. And then he would take it to the committee. But finally, I got a master's degree in administration. Didn't know I was going to be a principal. Got a master's degree in administration and supervision, and then got a minor in curriculum. So when I went to Bradley, I was prepared because I had the right certification. I ended up with, Glenn knows about this, I ended up with a lot of different certifications. I could teach history, and I could teach geography, all the social studies. I could teach physical education. I could teach health. I could teach first aid and safety. Those were the things that I was certified in. But the main thing, I had the administrative degree and also a minor in curriculum, which is very important for any principal to have.
But did you travel for 4 years, lived in Cleveland, and traveled there with the exception of that one semester?
Well, it didn't take me. It didn't take me 4 years. Well, it took me 3 years because I was doing a piecework, but I was traveling back and forth to classes, and I had several teachers from Lee going with me. Like Dr. Bilbo was working on his degree at the same time, and Roosevelt Miller was working on his degree at the same time.
Why wouldn't you just move there?
Well, because I was actually working at Lee. I got hired when I graduated from Lee. I got hired as the basketball coach and athletic director.
Oh,
And the reason I got hired is because my coach and the person who was athletic director, Dr. Black, went back to Knoxville to get his doctor's degree, and he did move up there, and it was a full-time thing for him. So I was interim coach for 1 year and interim athletic director. Now, after the first year, we had a pretty good season, and we won a lot of games and had a good program. So they appointed me coach. I became the coach and the athletic director starting my second year, and I stayed there for about a dozen years.
at Lee College.
Yeah, at Lee.
Till 75?
75. 75, you know that. July 75, July 7th, I became principal of Bradley High School. And my first experience, I ran the summer school there in July.
Was it at the old?
No, it's a new Bradley.
The new one, yeah.
New Bradley. See,
What year was it built?
It was built in '72, the new building, and I followed Mr. Schultz, Bill Schultz,
Bill Schultz.
who was principal there before,
wasn't
and he
he-
became mayor, later.
Yeah. Now, wasn't he friends with Dee Frisbee, who was not friends with Goldie Wattenbarger? Remember that?
They were Dee and Bill were tight.
Very tight.
Yeah, and then when I went to Bradley, you know who the principal was at Cleveland?
Yeah, I went there. He
Okay.
he paddled me a few times.
Clancy Henley. You remember?
No, Dee Frisbee
Well,
was.
Dee was there, but also when during the time that I was principal, Clancy Henley was principal at Cleveland High School after Dee.
Now, who's Clancy Henry?
Clancy Henley was a fellow that was an elementary principal, and then worked his way up, became principal at Cleveland High School, and
But what's that got to do with Frisbee and Schultz?
what's that got to do is he became a principal there, followed Dee Frisbee there, and
No, he was before Dee Frisbee, right?
no, he wasn't before. He was after Dee Frisbee.
When did Dee Frisbee? He was there when I was there, which has been
See,
about
Dee
80 or
Frisbee was
something.
there when Schultz was there. And then when I came, Dee might have been there a year or two, but Clancy
Cleveland
Henley,
Junior High,
that's a middle school.
middle school, yeah.
That's a middle school, yeah.
But yeah, Dee Frisbee and Bill Schultz were like you said, like that.
Yeah, they were buddies.
And
And
why that was?
I think Bill and Clancy Henley were good buddies too. And I became a good friend of, you have to communicate with Cleveland High School on a regular basis because you have students from Bradley and Cleveland transferring all the time. And somebody will get mad at something that happens in discipline. They say, well, I'll just go across town. So we had to have policies, or we would be full-time taking students back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did establish, you couldn't move from one school to the other until the semester. If
Yeah.
semester, and then you had to have a real good reason. A discipline problem at one school would not move you to the other school. Because most principals, if you're in trouble there at Cleveland High, I didn't want them at Bradley.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They didn't want our problems at Cleveland High School. Okay?
That's strange. And you would think that it would have to do with where you live more than anything.
Well,
if
that's
you're-
true,
'cause
but
that's a city school.
What is true today, you can go to any high school if you furnish your own transportation. You can go to Walker Valley. You can go to Bradley High School.
Well, how,
You
how
can go
can
to
they
Cleveland.
know? How can they know? What keeps them from getting totally engulfed with more students?
Well, it balances out. Prior to Walker Valley, when I went to Bradley, we had like 2,900 students my first year. We had study hall in the cafeteria, study hall in the little theater, study hall in the library, and study hall in the gymnasium and bleachers, because we didn't have room for all the students. So therefore, we had, in our curriculum, we had to do a lot of shuffling, and made it pretty difficult because that's just the way it was. We had so many students, we had to have a place to put them. And imagine having a study hall in the bleachers, in the gymnasium, and PE classes going on there.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah.
Out of
It'd be
necessity.
hard to study, wouldn't it?
Out of necessity. Imagine having a study hall in the library and people in there studying,
Yeah.
and kids sometimes in study hall, they want to talk a little, right?
Oh yeah.
So it created a problem. So we needed Walker Valley to be built, that's for sure.
Now, have from if you were there and you started did you go from Lee College directly to Bradley High?
I went from Lee. Yeah, I taught at Lee. See, I didn't mention that. I taught some courses also. Was assistant professor there, and I went from Lee to Bradley High School as principal.
Well,
right.
That was a big step, right?
Well, it was a big step, and there's only two principals. Well, maybe there might be three now. It could be that Todd Shoemaker might have double digits, but Bill Schultz had 14 years at Bradley. I had 21, and Todd may have had 10. He may have reached 10 before he went to the central office last year.
Is education like being a principal? That's probably different than running a business, and probably different than running a construction business. It's probably different than the militaries. Would you say it's different, or is it basically the same?
Bradley High School at that time with 2,900 students. See, we had 9 through 12. We later became a 10 through 12. But when we had a 9 through 12, pre-Walker Valley, it was like a little city. I mean, we had, you're feeding those kids, you're disciplining the kids. You have an arm over here of vocational education with all the classes, the air conditioning, auto body, cosmetology, just everything. FFA group was over there with Herbert Lackey and Richard doing the FFA.
Richard Ledford.
Richard Ledford, yeah.
They were good. I had him and Lackey.
Yeah.
They were really
they were really good. And
teachers.
At Christmas time, they lit up that end of the campus with all those beautiful flowers, those poinsettias.
Herbert Lackey was, he'd say, if you listen to me, I'll make something out of you.
Right.
Instead of saying make, he'd say mech.
Mech, okay.
I'd make something of you.
Okay, yeah, right.
I hadn't seen him in years.
I see Herbert some,
I haven't seen him.
just especially at the Olive Garden. Brenda and I go to Olive Garden sometime on Sunday, and we see Herbert and his son, LeBron, is a doctor.
Yeah.
And see his whole family out there sometimes.
But as a principal, I guess you have different departments and have meetings like you would in any other business.
Oh yes,
But
you're
then you
meeting
have
all the time. You have all kind of departments. Your English and your math and your social studies and physical education.
Wouldn't it
science.
be like having 2,900 bosses with a husband, a mother, and father? That'd be like 5,450.
Well, you not only that. You not only have those parents who are looking to you for guidance, but you also have all the alumni from here in town They're numerous Bradley
Man.
County alumnus, and they depend on you. You know, this is honest truth. It's probably still today. If when I'm in my office, there was somebody standing at my door or waiting for me outside, from the time I got there, I'm talking about outside the office, from the time I got there until I left that afternoon. Now, if I'm going to go to lunch, tell the secretary I'll be back at a certain time. And, you know, I never joined a civic club. I was asked to join Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, Civitan, Sertoma. During my stay at Bradley, I could have been a member of any of those clubs, but it was at noontime. And at noontime at the high school, I needed to be there. If a fight was going to break out, it was going to be during the noontime. It's going to be during class change when they're in the halls. Now let me just tell you this. I just thought of this. I had assistant principals, and I had a policy. It didn't matter. It didn't matter who
Jerry
was.
Frazier.
Jerry was one of my assistants.
Go ahead.
Jerry Frazier, Bob Zavalarin, Dan
I remember him.
Glasscock, Dale Woodard worked with us in administration, but it didn't matter. If somebody, David Dowdy, he was back in the time you were there. But if the bell rang, I had a policy where every assistant principal had to be in the hall. I took, like 1 week, I'd take the back of A hall, and I would be there, because if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen, you know, when they're in the hall. So I had every one of my assistant principals, one in B building, one in D, one in C.
I remember, and if there was a fight broke out, which I'll get to that in a minute, but it didn't last 30 seconds. Somebody was stopped.
Somebody was there.
You felt safe at Bradley when you were principal.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we were in the halls, and let me tell you what would happen. You know, back then there's a lot of marijuana being smoked.
I remember that.
And
Mostly
somebody
in the greenhouse.
When we were in the halls, somebody come up and said, "Mr. Hughes, the men's restroom." And I know that meant for me to go to the men's restroom. Somebody would come up and said, "Ladies' restroom." Well, we had some ladies posted also, you know, and you get a lot of information.
Sure.
From the kids who were good kids, and they want things to be right. So that was a policy that I established, and I thought it was a good policy.
Well, I know the fights didn't last but just a few seconds, and it wasn't students stopping them.
Yeah, you're right. Now, let me tell you this. When I went to Bradley, there was a smoking area.
In the center.
In the
Wasn't it
center. Yeah, you go out A hall, and
Yeah.
you're headed over to the vocational building, and right there, there's like a canopy there.
Yeah. Lori King sung a song there one time. Remember that?
What is it?
Lori King sung a song there.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just remember she sung a song.
Okay. Lori King.
Did y'all have?
Yeah, we had Lori and Richie were.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sweethearts.
But didn't they have? Was there bands in there? There wasn't. There wasn't.
No, in between there was kind of open area. That was the area everybody shooting out the doors going to classes.
Why did they have that? I don't remember.
Well, see, out there, everybody gathered and smoked. We had hundreds of kids.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as bell would ring, they'd head out there and smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I got to Bradley, I looked at it, and honestly, I'm not exaggerating. We would have 200 kids late to class.
Mm-hmm.
They would go out there and smoke and wait until the bell rang, then run to class. The teacher said, "You're not coming in here until you go get a pass from 8:30." So
Coach Zavalarin.
You go to 8:30.
Yeah.
That's our attendance office, and Zavalarin's office was right next to that. So they go to 8:30 and they get a pass. And I looked at that for a while and I said, "Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make this a non-smoking school." Well, I had teachers that smoked, and they smoked in the lounge.
Yeah.
And of course, when you make it a non-smoking school, they can't smoke either.
Yeah.
Now, I had one of the sweetest ladies was in the business area, Miss Simpson. And she came to me and said, now, Mr. Hughes, you're new. And this is a very bad mistake that you're making. Said, you're going to do this and you're going to have a lot of problems from the kids. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then we'll go to plan B. But we're disrupting classes all the time because of that smoking area. So we're going to give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then we'll go to another plan. I had everybody in the school to sign a letter that they understood the rules, that there was no smoking on the Bradley High School campus, and put their signature on there. Mm-hmm. Now, I told them this over the intercom. I said, this doesn't mean you're going to follow that rule. This means you understand the rule. Mm-hmm. Now, the first time they smoked after that, 3-day suspension. The second time, 5 days. The third time, 10 days. So it wasn't long until we didn't have the problem of smoking. Excuse me.
Sorry.
But we suspended quite a few. And you know, when anybody suspended from a high school, there's one signature that goes on there. That's the principal's. And during this early smoking time, I mean, there were several hundred that were suspended. But let me tell you something. There wasn't a problem with that at all. When everybody understood what the rule was, including the teachers, mm-hmm. there's no problem. I mean, it was smooth as silk. It took a few months, but after that, and Miss Simpson came back to me later, and she said, Mr. Hughes said, I'm glad it worked out.
People will get used to, human body will get used to about anything, won't it?
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But
going back to the fights, I remember when I was in school, there would be literally fights break out that were very dangerous. I mean, people would have knives, they'd throw chairs on top of somebody. And you don't hear about that. My kids don't come home and say, oh, there was a fight today. Mm-hmm. With us, there was 2 fights a day.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Do kids not fight anymore?
Well, I'd say there's still some fights. I don't know about so much in the classroom or hallway, but let me tell you something.
Well, but what stopped the fights?
Well, I don't know. I really can't tell you what stopped the fights, because I think there's still some fighting probably that goes on, but it's
not like
it's
back in the
maybe not as blatant as it once was.
When I went in the mid '80s, there were really fights.
Yeah.
So something stopped it. Mm.
Well, I can't tell you what it actually stopped it.
Maybe people are just different.
Well, I think I can't say that people are different, because it seems like now the kids have more freedom to do things than they ever have. And a lot of these things are...
Such as what?
Well, they have more freedom to go and come and do as they wish. They have more freedom to listen to music that is completely way out there with a lot of vulgarity in it.
We couldn't even take calculators to school.
Yeah. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has a cell phone. I don't know what the rule is now. I know in classes, teachers don't want them answering their phones.
I'll text my youngest boy during school, and he'll text me right back, so it must not be a problem.
Right. Well, and I know there's a lot of fights. I want to tell you about one. Early one morning, I was in back of A Hall, and a girl ran to me, and I had on a suit. I wore a suit and tie every day back then. I'm so happy not to have to do that now. But I wore a suit and tie.
Or sell
them. Yeah, or sell them, you're right. But I had suit and tie on. The girl came running to me and said, there's this boy who is taking a girl's head and smashing it in the locker. Mm-hmm. Said, come. So I went down. It was pouring down rain that day. So I came down, and it was early in the school year, and I didn't know the boy, and he was a freshman. And he had the blood running down the girl's head where he had smashed her in the locker room. So I grabbed his arm, and when I grabbed his arm, he jerked away from me. And then I grabbed his arm again, and we started wrestling. We were right at the end of C Hall, so we ended up pushing outside the door. I was trying to get him under control. Well, the next thing I knew, we were in between C and B, and we were wrestling on the ground in the mud, and there must have been 200 kids around there. And I'm in a tight suit, and we're on the ground, and we're wrestling.
And you didn't even really know what was going on.
Well, I didn't know
no preparation.
No preparation at all. But let me tell you what happened.
What year would this have been?
This would have been. It would have been early because we had ninth grade, so it'd have been from 75 to 79. And this boy was a special education kid. And he had a girlfriend, and see, she did something he didn't like, so he smashed her head into the locker. Well, I didn't know him, he didn't know me.
Yeah.
All he knew is when I grabbed his arm, he didn't want anybody messing with him. So we wrestled out there on the ground, and as I said, there's probably at least 200 kids out there, you know. So finally, I got on top of him and got him under control, you know, and brought him to my office. Of course, we suspended him, and then, you know, he's special education, and he stayed out for the whole semester because it was so blatant what he did. But then he came back the second semester, and totally different person. And he was in special education classes, and he did everything he was supposed to do. But I don't know what triggered him that day, but he had taken his girlfriend's head and was really abusing her at that time.
But that was the sort of fights, not boy and girl, but back in those days, it was really knockdown, drag-out fights. And I just don't think they had that today, and I don't know what caused the difference. But
yeah.
Maybe people are just smarter now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what could drastically change that in an attitude. Maybe they have some strict rules.
Maybe it's less. I don't know.
How I'm fighting.
But it is different.
Yeah.
It seems to be different. So, did you ever, while there with all those pressures, did you ever think, man, this is too much?
Let me tell you about it. I loved it every day.
How many years were you there?
21. From 75, July 7th, until 96. And I loved it every day that I was there. And I wanted to tell you about this. I brought this as a prop.
Ronald Reagan.
That's Ronald Reagan.
Boy, he was a good-looking guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, the only reason I tell you that, I took that picture.
It's a good, nice suit.
And
you took the picture.
I took that picture of him. Yeah. And I'm not a cameraman. I'm not a quality camera person.
Well, you had to be as close as me and you.
I was close to 6 feet. I said he was right there.
What was he then?
President.
How'd you get that close to the president?
Okay, I'm going to tell you about that. Glenn will know this.
Well, everybody loved him, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
He was a good president.
Yeah, great president, handsome guy. But you know, we tried out for School of Excellence in 1986. And School of Excellence at Bradley, there's only one high school in the state that would get it. We got it in 1986.
That's quite an accomplishment.
It was a great accomplishment. But the way you go through a process, and from the state, from the National Board of Education, and they send in people to your school. Mm-hmm. We had like 20 people come in all the different areas. You were asking about departments. Had somebody who had expertise in all these departments, and someone in administration that would come and meet with me, and they stayed with us several days. And we were the school that was picked for National School of Excellence. So my wife, Herbert Lackey, and his wife, I chose them to go with us because Herbert had been there a long time.
Yeah.
Carol taught it, as you know, in the business department, his wife.
I never knew that.
Yeah, she was in the business department. And then I had
Explains where he was at most of the time.
Yeah, probably so. And George Narron was superintendent.
Yeah.
And his wife, Suzanne, went with us. We all went to Washington.
Did he have his pencil in his ear?
Well,
Doesn't he have it? Oh, he's had a pencil
that was
in his
Dan
ear.
Coggin.
Oh, yeah,
Dan Coggin had a pencil in his
Yeah,
ear.
yeah.
But anyhow, we're going to Washington to receive the plaque for the National School of Excellence. And I actually thought when we went to Washington, the reason I chose the couples to go with us is because I thought they would be able to get in. This was in the Rose Garden. And I thought they would be able to get in, and view the proceeding. What happened when we got there, they said only one person can come in to the Rose Garden. And of course, when you go into the White House for anything, they stop and they check you, and you empty your pockets, and they, you go through just like you do like at airports now. But anyhow, I had the opportunity to go, so George Narron had his camera, and he said, "Here, take this with you, and if you can, get a picture of the president."
So it wasn't even your camera?
That wasn't my camera, no. And I'm not a good cameraman, but I
Well,
love
that was a good picture.
But anyhow, let me tell you what happened. We finished.
And he's in stride.
Yeah, he's in stride. He's
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened here. You remember Sam Donaldson?
Yeah.
Sam Donaldson yelled at him. "I'm right here. I'm right here."
You're right here.
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, I'm right 6 feet from him, and Sam Donaldson's behind me. And this was a time, and this is so timely now since Amy Coney Barrett is running for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Justice.
Yeah. And at that time, Bork was running, and he had given him his recommendation. So Sam Donaldson yelled, "Mr. President!" And President looked over and he said, "You're going to lose the Bork nomination and committee, aren't you?" In other words, it wouldn't get out of the Judiciary Committee. And he looked at him and said, "Over my dead body."
So what word was he in?
I don't know what word, but he said, "Over my dead body," right there. And I snapped his picture and have had that ever since.
It looks like he's right in the middle of dead.
So I thought I'd bring that and share that story with you. But
that's an incredible story.
Oh, it's and all of us got to walk up on a little platform. He shook our hand and gave us our plaque, and that was a great occasion for us, for Bradley High School. It was a great accomplishment.
What was your worst day there? Besides the day you wrestled the.
Well, there were days, I can't say it's the worst day. I think every day I was there, I parked my car in front. I had a parking place right by the overhang there where the bear was.
Yeah.
And by the way, the bear was stolen twice while I was there.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was stolen twice. Painted blue one time. Yeah. And the amazing thing about it, the young man that did that, his dad brought him to my office and said, "This is the young man that has the bear, and he has it out in our shed." And he said, "I'm ashamed to tell you, but it's painted blue." So it was during the Cleveland Bradley week, and he had taken it, and he paid for it, got it back in good shape, and had it put back up. But it was 2 different times it was taken. But I can't say, Dee, I really can't point out a worse day because, you know, the only thing that I regret, and I really regret this, and I've told my wife this a number of times, that I didn't keep a daily diary. I wish I'd have kept what happened from 8 o'clock to 4
Boy,
o'clock.
that would have been so.
I wish
hard.
I wish I had just detail after detail after detail. I just wish I had done that, and I didn't do that, and I didn't think of it. I just regret it so much that I don't have a diary from my daily activities there.
How many employees was there?
100
Teachers.
at that time we had 156.
Now, if you were running an industry with 156 employees, no managers, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You'd say managers.
Well, that's from the janitor. What I gave you is janitor workers, cafeteria workers, all the way up to teachers.
to the guy that mows the yard, I guess.
Oh yeah, everybody.
How many
Plus I had a guy out at the gate. I put that fence
Oh, I remember
up.
Smokey.
Smokey.
Yep.
Wendell Goins.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you remember him.
Yep.
Then I put all those pear trees across the front.
Whatever happened to him?
Oh, he's died. He died several years ago, just of natural causes.
Yeah.
But he loved that job.
Yeah, he
And
didn't
it wasn't-
stop you.
Let me tell you, it wasn't that much money to have one. And then at a period of time at Bradley, they didn't know who was coming and who was going.
Mm-hmm.
But when we put that fence around and Smokey was there,
Yeah.
we knew who was coming in and we knew who was going. I had a radio to him.
Yeah.
Let me tell you one story. We had a guy come down from Sweetwater, and he comes in and he goes to my secretary and he says, I'm going to check out my daughter. Well, he had his car out in front. He left his keys in the car. And my secretary was suspicious.
What made her suspicious?
Well, he
Today they'd be real suspicious, but
Yeah.
back then it wasn't.
well, she somehow, he did something that she didn't think was right. I don't know if it was his attitude or whether he was fearful or how he came across to her. I don't know exactly what happened. But anyhow, she came in and said, Mr. Hughes, this man out here wants to check out his daughter. And she said, we need to check him out. So I said, well, get me her card. She got her card, and I called her mother. And I said, is somebody supposed to be here to check out your daughter?
Now, when you say card, I guess that has emergency contacts.
It has
et cetera.
all the contacts.
You gotta have the
home
card.
contact, your work contact, and everything. Got her card. So I called, and she said, no, sir. Said, I know who that is, and he shouldn't be with my daughter. So I called down to Smokey, and I said, Smokey, go up to that car, put your car in front of it and block it. And also see if the keys are in it. If the keys are in it, get the keys. So Smokey came up, pulled his car in front, and got the keys out of the car. So when I came out and said, sir, I want to ask you a few questions about your daughter. He looked at me and he knew he had been had, and he took off running. When he got out to his cars, there weren't any keys in the car. So he started running, ran out the gate, and then of course we had his car, and I had the police come. They hauled his car in and eventually arrested him. But, you know, if she hadn't have felt like this is not right,
Yeah.
you know, we would be letting a daughter out. And, you know, anytime you're in a school business, they can find you liable just about for anything, any move you make.
But you're
So-
watching that. You're watching the teachers. You're watching the janitor. You're watching the yard mower. You're subject to getting 5,400 calls in one day from students' parents. That would drive me crazy.
Yeah, it was exciting times, that's for sure. It really was. When you were there, Billy Joe Cartwright was the janitor.
Yep.
And over the intercom, they'd say, Billy Joe Cartwright, please come to the office. And one day a person asked me, said, who is Billy Joe Cartwright? And I said, well, he's the janitor. He said, well, I thought he's one of the students. Said he's probably in trouble all the time. But he was a custodian at that time.
Who was the other guy? Pippinger. Was it Pippinger? No, not Pippinger. Who is the other janitor there?
Well, we had janitors for all the buildings, so I don't know. Ralph Blair.
Ralph Blair.
Ralph
Boy, he was
Blair.
a good guy.
Yeah, Ralph Blair was over the vocational area.
Boy, he was a great guy.
Good guy.
Good guy.
Yeah,
I can
really.
see him today.
Yeah, I liked Ralph. When I hired Ralph, he was needing a job, and he told me one thing. He said, "I'll work every day." Said, "You don't have to look over my shoulder."
Mm-hmm. You didn't, did you?
No, not at all. Said, "I'll work every day." He's a very good guy.
Very good guy. Yeah, I know his son.
I had his boy. Boy, Bradley.
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph Jr.
Yeah. He goes to my church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Melinda used to go there, his daughter.
Okay.
And his wife, his widow.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's a small world, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
let
it
me
is.
ask you this. Were you living over on Windsor Estates, was that right?
I actually lived on Peerless Road, 2319 Peerless Road was my first house. First of all, we lived in the dormitory.
Yeah, yeah. For
Lived
the
in-
4 years?
Lived in the dormitory. How many years, Brenda?
Oh, because you worked there for 12
Yeah,
years.
I worked there, but I lived in
Yeah.
the dormitory when we first got married because that was, we weren't making much money.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, the bottom line, we lived in a one-room apartment when we first got married upstairs. And we had, it was $18 a month, and they paid the utilities.
What would the utilities have been?
We should still be there.
Yeah. They've probably gone up on the rent.
The next year, we moved downstairs. We had an extra room, and it was $25.
And this is in the dormitory or somewhere else?
It's in the dormitory.
Oh.
Yeah, moved downstairs. Then later on, we were able to buy a house. We bought a house on Peerless Road, and Richie and Carrie went to Stewart School.
That's where I went.
Yeah, went to Stewart
Yeah.
School.
Walked
So
home,
you
I
and
guess.
Richie were together
was
all
there-
the way through high school then.
No, I was there first, second, and fifth.
Okay.
So but I never had any classes with him, I don't think. I was first, second, and fifth.
While I was at Bradley, let me tell you one thing here. You know who that is?
This right here is Muhammad Ali, right?
Yes, sir.
And who's this guy?
That guy right there is myself.
Is that
Me,
you?
That's me.
Boy, that don't look like you.
Yeah, that is years ago, but that's a picture of me.
Get a close up of this. I don't believe that's you.
I assure you, I wouldn't have it and had it in my office all these years if it wasn't me.
So where is this taken at?
That's taken in Las Vegas at the Hilton Flamingo Hotel.
What were you doing there?
I was there for Bradley High School at a National Principals Association conference, and it was in Las Vegas that year. And I was staying there at the Hilton.
That is close.
My wife was with. Excuse me. Yeah, it is. But let me tell you about this.
You wrestled that guy in the yard.
Look how big his fist is.
Was he standing next to him? Did you get what they call that? When you meet a celebrity.
Anxiety or
what do they call that?
nervousness.
Starstruck.
Oh no! I'll tell you about
Was he
what
big?
happened. Oh, he's big. Yeah, big guy, and of course he was the champion at that time of the world.
He never looked that strong to me.
Yeah, those big arms. He was out. The reason I got that picture, he was out in the lobby talking with everybody. He had a fight that night.
So he just wandered in?
He was staying there, but he just was talking to everybody, just walking around.
Nice guy.
But he had a fight that night. You know,
Yeah.
they always say he was always yakking.
Yeah.
You know.
Was he yakking
Well,
when he was walking through?
Oh yeah, he was doing a lot of talking. He was going to fight that night, Leon Spinks. It took place at the Hilton Flamingo Hotel. That's where the fight was. Well, I went up to him and said, "Champ, could we get a picture?" And he said, "Sure." So he put his fist underneath my chin, and I got that picture.
Who took the picture?
And a person that I commandeered there took the picture and gave me the film. I paid for the film, and then I had it developed before I came home. But that was something I've had in my office the whole time, and I've always cherished. You know, that moment was a great moment, a lot of fun.
Was that a three-piece suit you're wearing?
I might have had a vest on. I don't know.
Thick tie.
But yeah, I had a tie.
That was
but
the
let me
style
tell you,
then.
let me tell you the uniqueness of that. He got beat that night.
Oh, really?
Leon Spinks beat him and stripped him from his world title.
What year would that have been? I'm gonna watch it on YouTube.
That would have been in between 76 and 78. Leon Spinks.
Maybe you gave him bad luck.
I may have, but that was the night that he fought. But see, most fighters and most people in athletics would be secluded.
Yeah, they wouldn't have come out.
Yeah, like you know, if you have a tough contest, you don't want anybody around. You want to be thinking,
Psyched up.
you know, yeah. But he was down there chucking and jiving with everybody in the lobby down there, and had that major fight that night. So he got beat.
Did that mess anything up? So
Do we need to do over on that?
you can't capture the old.
Okay.
So why did you quit from being principal?
Well,
What made that decision?
what made that decision at that time, I was transferred from Bradley to the Board of Education building to be a supervisor. So I made a transfer from Bradley High School and worked at the Board of Education, kind of like Coggins, Todd Shoemaker, and a lot of other people have done, but I did go to the central office and work there for about a year, and then after that I retired and started. I bought a hotel, bought the Holiday Inn.
So you quit being you retired
From education.
From education.
Right.
So why the motel business? That's a
Well, the place to be, and a lot of decisions were made at the Holiday up on the hill. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Everybody went there.
Yeah.
Well, it became available.
Who owned that?
A guy from Columbia, Tennessee, owned that. And I decided when it became available that I would get a partner and would buy it. And so I talked to Hal Dixon. You know Mr. Dixon. He's on the county commission. He was the head of the finances for the county commission for years. And he and I were going in partnership. So we put down X amount of money to Holiday Inn, and they had accepted us. They had done their due diligence on us. They had accepted us. So we put down X amount of money, and we had a certain date. If we didn't decide on this date, by this date, then we were no longer eligible, number one, to have the hotel, or number two, to get our money back. So we had to make a decision by a certain date. Well, when that date came, I got a call at 8 o'clock in the morning from Mr. Dixon. Mr. Dixon said, Dale, I'm not feeling well, and I don't believe I can take on the Holiday Inn. And he said, "I'm just count me out." So I said, "Well, if you're not going to do it, then count me out." So I went to
About how old were you at this point?
Well, I went to Bradley when I was 32, and I was in my 50s. I was in my 50s at that time, 32,
53.
20, something like that. Well, anyhow, I went to Mr. Rayburn. Ken Rayburn was the president of Citizens Bank.
Yeah, I love Ken.
And your brother worked for him.
Yeah, I like Ken.
Bo.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Ken and said, "Ken, I'm not going to do it. Mr. Dixon just called me and he backed out." And Mr. Rayburn said, "You need to do this. You need to do it." I said, "Well, can I borrow the money for this?" And he said, "Yes."
Was it a lot of money then? I mean, that's not been that long ago, really.
It was
A couple million, a million and a half or something.
It was a lot of money. No, it was a lot more, double that. A lot of money.
So
And
it
he
was a
said,
big step.
Yeah, it was a big step.
But
and
what
it
was going through your mind before you did that? Because you could
Well,
really just sit and not do nothing.
Yeah, that's true. But I really was too young. I had to get some things going. So I bought the Holiday Inn, and I had a 10-year contract for it to be a Holiday Inn. Mm-hmm. But at the end of 10 years, they came to me and said, "We'll give you another 10 years, but you're going to have to sell liquor." And I said, "Well, I can't do that." They said, "All Holiday Inns that have full service will be selling liquor." Full service means you serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I said, "Well, I can't do that." Said, "Then you can't be a Holiday Inn." I said, "Well, so be it. If I can't be a Holiday Inn, I'll become independent."
But now let's not skip this 10 years here.
Okay.
You're a motelier
Yes, sir.
for 10 years.
Yes, sir. Holiday Inn.
Running the restaurant.
Running the restaurant, and it was at that time the place to be. I had all the civic clubs up there. Rotary.
Yeah, I went to
Lions Club, Civitan.
Mm-hmm. Home Builders, I think. Was it Home Builders?
Home
Builders, yeah.
Riverside.
Yeah.
Realtors. That's the realtors.
Realtors. I went to the realtors, yeah.
But anyhow, and all kind of weddings
and a good Sunday lunch.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you and your wife used to eat up there.
Come there a lot.
Used to see you up there. Yeah.
Now, you had somebody would play music.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Alan Wyatt.
It was always the same person.
Yeah.
Well, that was just a real calm place to go.
Yeah.
On a cold. They had y'all had the best coffee in town. What coffee was that?
We had the coffee.
Royal Cup.
Royal Cup. Local guy. Remember that big guy?
Yeah, he don't do it anymore.
Yeah, Royal Cup.
You can't find it.
Yeah.
That was the best coffee.
Yeah.
If they served that next door to Starbucks, everybody'd get Royal Cup.
But the two guys that did the music, Alan Wyatt played the sax, and the guitar was played by Sean Perkinson.
I think like sometimes they would both be there, and sometimes just one maybe.
Well, maybe if one was absent. Yeah. You know, we started off with Alan and his wife. She played the keyboard, and Alan played the sax.
Y'all had a fresh salad.
And yes, we did. Fresh salad every day, you know. And I had some great cooks. Let me tell you one story. The food company would send people who did a lot of business with them on a cruise. So I was going to go on a cruise that was being paid for by Cisco Foods.
Or Cisco.
Yeah. And my wife and I were going. It was going to be a Caribbean cruise. Well, the night before, my cook disappeared. He left. Nobody knew where he was. I called his phone numerous times.
Typical chef,
Typical chef. He disappeared. he had done that before I got to the hotel, but he hadn't done that since I'd been there. So I told my wife, I can't go. Can't go on the cruise. So she went, and being it was
By herself?
No, she took my son.
Oh.
Took Eddie Joe. And it was a special flight with Cisco people on it. So therefore, he was able to go as Dale Hughes.
Yeah.
In other words, if it had been a commercial flight, there'd be no way.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyhow, he went and took my place. Well, my cook didn't show up for 2 weeks, and I had to do a lot of scrambling to get somebody in, and I got a really good chef.
Did you actually
come in?
Did you have to cook yourself any?
Well, people wouldn't eat what I cooked. They probably would not.
So you had to find a chef that day.
I had people working in that could cover.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a main chef. But I found somebody right away who was working in another restaurant and came and worked hours he wouldn't work in the other restaurant, worked for me. So that was a unique situation, but it turned out all right.
But so for 10 years, let's see, what was that, 300 rooms?
145.
145.
Mm-hmm.
Plus
and
the
you
pool.
know, then when I had that, I got a call from the guy who owned the Baymont. Remember the Baymont?
Yeah. See, I owned the Douglas Inns.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And you would send us your overflow.
Yeah, you sure did own the Douglas Inn.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
me and John Paul Douglas. That's
right.
Where I got the name.
Yeah, and I saw John Paul's picture out here also.
Yeah, I got his. He was a great friend.
Yeah.
But I remember you bought the Baymont.
I did buy the Baymont.
From Max Carroll?
Well, Max and Jim Carroll. Jim was in Fort Myers, Florida, and Max, of course, was local here, and they were partners. And I bought it from. I didn't want it. I didn't want to buy it, and they called me and offered it. I said no.
And they didn't have a lot of business then, right?
Probably not. It's 100 rooms.
Yeah.
We lived there for 6 months at the Baymont. Mm-hmm. We had a fire at our house, so we lived there. We moved in to Baymont with our children, and stayed there for 6 months until we could rent a place. But anyhow, finally Jim called me, Jim Carroll, and said, Dale, he said, I want you to have this hotel. It said the Holiday Inn's going well, right? And I said, yes. He said, well, what would you give for this hotel? And I just gave a figure that I thought he would say, well, you're crazy. He said, okay. So
what'd you base it on? What you knew you could make it at?
Well, I knew what I was doing on the hill, and I knew I could send other folks down there because we'd fill up a lot. Mm-hmm. So I could play one against the other. Mm-hmm. And it had 100 rooms in the Baymont.
And at that time, they had a restaurant next door.
Next door.
What was the name of that?
Porter's.
Porter's.
At that time, it was a breakfast place. At that time, we used to eat breakfast over there. You remember what it was to start with?
I can't remember, but they just never made it, did they? Well, it started with, I think it started with a P. Like not poor folks. Or
no.
Poor.
But they still have those restaurants. It's still in Florida, quite a few of those restaurants. And we'd eat over there. We had, in fact...
Good food, wasn't it?
When we lived there, we had an arrangement with them that we could pay, once a week or whatever, go over there and eat quite a bit. But I can't think of the name of it. It then became Porter's.
Yeah, but it was something else before that.
Yeah. Oh, it was, yeah. I can't think of it. But anyhow, we... Porter's restaurant was pretty successful, and then they owned that. Jim and Max Carroll owned it.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know.
So
that.
I got a call from Jim later on, and he said, "I want to sell you that restaurant." So I don't want a restaurant. I don't want it. And so he made it available where I bought it.
You bought the restaurant.
I bought the restaurant. I bought Porter's Restaurant.
So you owned the Holiday Inn, the Baymont, and Porter's Restaurant.
That's right. And we made, with Porter's, we no longer had Porter's. We changed it. It became a catfish. Remember ant catfish or something of that nature?
Back porch.
Oh, wasn't that?
You know, I ate over there when it was Porter's. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good, but we anyhow we had a restaurant there, and I had a guy that managed it, and I still own that building.
Oh, do you?
I still have
What's in there now?
It was a it was a place for people who wanted a job, and they would come in to, I forget what they called it, but there's temporary workers. But I forget the name of it. But Jeannie Hart had it, and rented it from me. But it was. So
you just lease it now?
Yes, right now it's not leased; it's for sale. But I just remodeled all of it probably about a year ago. But
so did you sold the Baymont, right?
Sold the Baymont. The Baymont wasn't for sale, and I had a guy. It's now called Comfort Inn, you know. But on a Saturday, I got a call at home, and person said, "Mr. Hughes, I'm down here at the Baymont, and I'd like to talk with you." Well, anytime that happens, you think of the worst.
Yeah.
You think if somebody had a terrible time, somebody stole something out of their room.
Or slipped on the bathtub.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I said, what's the problem? And he said, I'd like to talk to you. He said, I promise not to take more than 30 minutes of your time. And he said, I'm interested in this hotel. So I went over that day on a Saturday. And this man was from Pennsylvania, and he said, I've looked at this hotel. I'd like to buy this. I said, really? So he asked me a question. He said, would you take X amount of dollars for this hotel? And I said, yes, sir, I would. He said, well, I'm going to write you a check. And he wrote me a check for $25,000.
Now, this is all in the same hour?
This is all. When I went over there in 30 minutes, he had written me a check. And he said, you cash this on Monday. And he said, you'll know that I'm serious. So he was serious. 30 days later, that was his hotel.
Was it?
So
were you over that old motel business at that point? Or there?
Was I over?
Yeah, were you wanting to get out of it?
No, it was fine. We were doing well. No, this guy just came. He wanted it a lot worse than I did.
Now, the Holiday Inn, you sold it, right? Or the one on the hill?
Sold it, right? Yeah.
So now we're at that
Holiday Inn Express.
Well, now we're at the point where they said you got to serve alcohol.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, it had to serve alcohol, and I wasn't going to do that. So, therefore, I changed the name to Mountain View.
Yeah. And
made it independent. And we did all right because we had a lot of people who were regulars.
Yeah.
And we had places that in town, like Magic Chef, who sent their people to us, and many other businesses that would send their people to us. And so we did fine as a Mountain View, but we didn't have that holiday system where somebody's coming from Ohio and they want a room and they click in on Holiday Inn or they go on the internet and they say, well, there's one in Cleveland, Tennessee, and we can stay there. We didn't have that.
Just had the Travelocity. Is that what they call it?
We had all of that stuff we could have, you know, but the bottom line, we didn't have the capacity or we didn't have the numbers that we had when we had a Holiday Inn. but we still had good business.
Did it drop off significantly or some?
Some,
Yeah.
yeah, and then
But did it equal the franchise fee you had to take, or was it about a wash? In other words, if it's not a Holiday Inn, you're not paying the franchise fee.
That's right. That's right.
Or the flag fee.
That
they
helped.
call it.
Well, that helped.
So was it about a wash?
I think we did okay financially. The franchise fee was high. I'm telling you, you had to give Holiday Inn their share.
Oh, I know it. I've looked into that.
Yeah. So, but you made yours an independent in Douglas Inn.
Yeah. So it didn't matter. All we had to do was pay the bank.
Right.
And
right.
So. But so then you sold that, I believe, to Danny Patel, right? Or did you? Or let's see.
Well, Danny Patel wanted it. He wanted. In fact, Holiday Inn picked him, picked Danny, to build another one in town. So Danny went down on Atkinson Drive and bought that property down there where Marriott is now.
And let it sit.
And he let it sit, but he put a couple $100,000 in it.
Yeah.
And lost it because the economy went down.
That was in 07, 8.
That was 07, 8.
Yep.
And he decided not to build, so he lost his franchise. So
nobody has it now, I guess, right?
Nobody. Yeah. Well, just recently, over next to La Quinta is now a full Holiday Inn. Just in the last few months became a Holiday Inn. They had to do a lot of. You saw all that work they did.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it's a Holiday Inn full service now. But then I got a call from Holiday Inn and said, "Would you build a Holiday Inn Express?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it and pray about it, and I'll get back with you." Well, 3 weeks later, they called me again and said, "Hey, are you going to do this?" And I still fumbled around a while, but then they called me the third time, and we finally built the Holiday Inn Express behind the Longhorns.
Oh, yeah.
And then I sold Longhorns.
Had you already sold the Holiday Inn on the Hill? The Mountain View Inn?
Yes.
So you were not in business. You were just retired and.
Well, I had real estate, that I was selling.
Yeah.
I still have some real estate, but we started the Holiday Inn when I was still on the Hill, but sold it early part when we just started with the Holiday Inn Express.
Wasn't that a big step to open up a new motel? I mean.
Well, Dee, I had people tell me that I wasn't very smart because the economy was kind of.
You built that when the economy was the worst that I've ever remembered.
That's right. The economy was down. Built it, and by the time it was finished, the first month we made money. The very first month. Mm-hmm. They say in any new building, that's going to take you several months before you can get. But we were very fortunate. We're very fortunate and thankful. But the Holiday Inn Express was rocking and rolling when we sold it.
So now you sold it too?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So now what?
Now what? I'm enjoying traveling some, Brenda.
Every time I've called, you left your glasses here the other day. Did you get them?
No.
They're here somewhere. I left them here for you.
Okay, I've been looking for them.
Well, I've got them. Somebody's got them.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you got new glasses?
No, those were sunglasses.
Oh yeah, they were prescription sunglasses. They were expensive.
They're prescription, and I've been looking all over for those.
Well, I've got them.
Well, good.
I called you, I think.
You called me and said I left a pen here or something.
No, glasses.
Okay, I didn't know. Anyhow, I'm glad you have them. Thank
I've got them somewhere. I'll
so
find
much.
them.
I'm glad.
They laid right here for a while.
Yeah.
But so where does politics enter into this?
Well, I've been on the city council for 10 years.
Yeah, but when did that figure in, and how did that figure in?
Well, politics, I first was on the school board. And a guy came to me and said, we'd like for you to run for school board, and said nobody is running as of yet, and like for you to run. I was at Lee. I was coach at Lee. So I said, well, I I didn't know much about school board at that time. And I decided that I would run because I was in touch with our Congressman Lamar Baker. I managed his campaign for the district, for, the 12 different counties at that time. And I managed his campaign, so I liked that. So I got involved with the school board.
Now,
and
was this
I
after you was principal?
No, this is before I was principal. But I got a school board, and the day I announced in the paper, I didn't have any competition. The next day, the CEO of Bowaters announced against me, Norman Holtz. Do you remember Norman Holtz?
No.
He was CEO at Bowaters, so he announced against me, and we had a race against each other.
But I never consider, and I don't think anybody else does, being on the school board is politics. And maybe it is.
It's not supposed to be, but you have to run. You have to run, and you run, and you have competition just like any other race.
Yeah, but when we think of politics, I think of city council, the county mayor, the city mayor. So when did you decide I'm going to run for city council?
Well, when Bill Robertson died. Bill Robertson died. Chief.
Yeah.
And he had cancer. Mm-hmm. And he died, and the position came open. And Tom Rowland was a friend of mine.
Now, didn't he date Dolly Parton?
Said he did.
I think he did.
he said he did. Yeah, I'd say that he's from Sevierville.
Yeah, I played golf with him a time or two, and he swore by it.
If you go up to Sevierville, everybody knows the chief. He was the best football player to come out of Sevierville County High School that they had in years. He was a running back. He went
Chief
on to
Robertson.
Went on to Middle Tennessee.
Really good guy.
Good guy, and I liked him. We worked together. He was on my staff at Bradley.
I hadn't thought about him in 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, good guy. But he died, and he was in that seat in the 5th District, which represents Anatole, Kingden, all the way down to 25th Street, Northwood, all that area. So when he died, there were 7 people that ran for that seat. But at that time, there wasn't an election. So 7 of us had to come before the city council and make a presentation, and then the city council voted. And I ended up being appointed to Bill's seat until there was an election. This was in May. This was May 17th when I accepted that. And then later, I guess it was in August, I had to run for the seat the following year when the election came up. Mm-hmm. So ran for the seat. I've always had competition, Dee. Every time I ran for school board, I had this guy from Bowaters to Norman Holtz. And then when I ran, I always had competition until this year. This year is the first year I didn't have anybody run against me.
Well, what's it like running for a job that you really don't have to have, that you're not really, you won't, but how hard do you work to be the guy that everybody can blame?
Well, that's a good point. That's
think about that.
That's an excellent point.
Because every time you make a decision, half are mad and half are glad.
That's right. You're exactly right. And I think my wife would say that sometimes she would rather I wouldn't be on city council. And there are times when I've had my doubts, but I think if you want to be of service, and you enjoy being a little piece of the action. I'm one councilman out of 7, and then we have a mayor. And the 7 of us vote, and the mayor chairs the meetings. And to see Cleveland is a booming area. You know, when things are bad in other areas, Cleveland keeps on rocking.
And
Bradley County.
It's unbelievable. We're going to all wake up one day and wish we hadn't have been so good.
I'm telling you, it's a wonderful place. This is a great place to live. I love taking trips and going places, but I always
Every time I call you, you're out of town.
I always enjoy.
Where do you go?
Coming back home, because this is my home.
But where do you go?
We go to Florida some. We went to Hilton Head
just vacation?
2 weeks ago. Just kind of get away for a week.
Didn't stay with anybody or no business? Just
we don't ever stay with anybody. We stay at a hotel or wherever. But anyhow, we enjoy getting away, but we always like seeing that sign when we come back to town. This is a great place to live and raise your children.
Boy,
There's no place better than
better.
Cleveland, Bradley County.
No place better.
I agree.
It is hard to explain to people. But like you came from. Did you ever think about going back to Ohio or going back to? Well, you weren't in Georgia. Your family was from Georgia.
My family's from Georgia.
So you never thought about going to Ohio.
When I came here, I didn't want to come here. I told you that. Didn't want to come here. Mm-hmm. My dad was very forceful with it. And after I was here a semester, then I really couldn't wait to get back second semester after Christmas. And then after that, I met my wife and got married and never looked back. I don't have any desire to go back and visit. I had some great friends back there.
What do you remember in the mid-'60s about Cleveland that you just gives you a good feeling?
The people. The people, to me, were so hospitable and so different. The South was so different than where I lived in Canton, Ohio, and I loved growing up in Canton. I can't say anything negative about that, but the people were so different and so hospitable. I loved it. I just found my friends here.
Give me an example.
Well, when you're in town and you don't know somebody and you're walking down the street and they speak to you, mm-hmm. That was unusual to me, because in the North, they could care less.
You mean when they just say, "How you doing?"
Yeah, how you doing? And
was that weird?
And then if you ever get engaged in a conversation with somebody, they seem to be real true people and interested in you. So I was at college age at that time, and I just thought, man, this is a panacea. This is a wonderful place to live.
Is that a Southern thing, or is it?
It's a Southern thing. It's a Southern thing. My wife, she actually kids me about some of the things I've taken on, like grits. I didn't know what grits were. I had home fries in Ohio, and turnip greens and some of those things that I did, black-eyed peas, that type thing. But I've learned to love not only the culture, the people.
Black-eyed peas, I don't even like the taste of them, but I like to eat them.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to.
Yeah, especially at New Year's,
Every New Year's I ate black-eyed peas.
For good luck.
Yep,
that's
for
right.
good luck.
Yeah.
So far it's worked. Now, so when you won the city council for city commissioner, obviously you're a city commissioner. Is that a tough job?
Well, city council it can be. Right now is a tough time because of the monument, people calling us and wanting us to do this and that. I voted against doing anything about the monument, and I got emails of people who told me that they were very disappointed in me and that I didn't have compassion and that type thing. but that's all right. That comes with it. Bradley High School kind of trained me that I'm gonna get the negative side as well as the positive side.
So in other words, when you had to make the decision about the non-smoking at Bradley High,
right,
making the decision one of 7, it was almost like it's almost like an easier decision.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was one of the ones who said we're not going to do anything we're not going to move the monument, and we don't own it. So therefore we can't do anything with it. But there were some that wanted to have a committee.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started getting emails and contacts from people saying how disappointed they were in me. But that's all right. I did the right thing because next meeting we came back and we made it a 7-0 decision that we would pick a committee.
Let them
Pick a
think about
one
it.
from Bradley High School, and one from Cleveland, and one from Cleveland State, and one from Lee University, and one from the NAACP, and one from 100 Black Men. And then the chairman would be the head of the Chamber of Commerce, Mike Griffin. So they're handling it now, and their first meeting is supposed to be in November 6th. So we're going to find out who all is on that committee at our next meeting.
So they'll come back with their research and recommendation, I guess, or
Right.
at least a report.
Yes, they'll come back with a report, but as far as we're concerned, as far as the city council, we're out of it. This is a committee that will have their findings, and they can report it to the community.
That's a tough one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's a tough one. I mean, you could, I guess you could argue both sides if you wanted to, right?
Absolutely.
But being a city council. Now, first, are you thinking about building another motel?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not thinking about building one at all. I have some property that I could build another one, but at this point in my life, I don't want the responsibility of another hotel, and I would rather have my free time than to get involved in another building project.
When you say free time, what would you describe your Sunday evenings?
My Sunday.
I mean, if everybody would say, what does
Sunday-
Dale Hughes do on Sunday evenings? What is it?
Well, I have an option of going to church. We have church on Sunday evening. During COVID, we haven't had the last 6 months.
Now where
We don't have.
Now where is you go to church?
I go to North Cleveland Church of God.
Is that
and-
where Dwayne Goff goes?
Yes,
Just Goff.
Dwayne Goff goes there. Yes, he does.
This is his shirt.
Yeah, I see.
What is that? Voicepedia?
Yeah, Voicepedia.
What
Tell
they-
me about that.
I don't know. I don't know what they do. I know they do. Maybe he sells. I'm not sure. I think you buy your phone service through them instead of through
Okay.
AT&T. Maybe they get a lot of maybe they buy a certain amount of phone service and at a discount, and they sell it at a discount. Maybe that.
Well, Dwayne is a true young entrepreneur. That Dwayne has been involved in a lot of different functions, and I've sold Dwayne buildings. I sold him I sold him an apartment complex in Dalton, Georgia.
He rides bikes with us sometimes, and he's definitely a competitor.
Oh yeah.
He's very good. He's an athlete.
Yeah, he just did a run. You knew about his
Yeah,
run
I
lately.
saw that.
I saw it in the paper. I don't
If
know
you didn't
much
know,
about it.
if you didn't know about it, then you hadn't met him. You hadn't seen him.
Well,
he told everybody.
Let me tell you, I saw him in church the other day, and I said, Dwayne, what are you doing running the distance that you ran? He had a motorcycle accident years ago and almost, hurt his back, and it could have been fatal. and he slid off the motorcycle and really hurt himself. So I was surprised that he was going to do this run. So I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm doing all right now and feeling better." And so, but he's a unique guy. I like Dwayne and his wife. They're lovely people.
Whatever his business does, I know they've got a lot of accounts like Perry Stone and maybe the liquor store. So, and maybe Life Care. So it must be whatever it is they do, they're successful at it, evidently.
Yeah, well, he's done a lot of things, a lot of different businesses, and I think Dwayne is a real, true young entrepreneur. He's just excellent.
So he goes to the Church of God.
He does, and his brother Dwight goes there. His younger brother, Dwight, and his wife, and we see him quite often at church.
Church of God, they call them cogs. Is that right?
Cogs.
I've heard that phrase more recently.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know why people started doing that.
C-O-G. Yeah, Church of God. Cogs. Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
I heard somebody tell me the other day, said, "Oh, you're a member of the COC," and I didn't know what they was talking about. To come to find out, it's Church of Christ.
Yeah.
Why do people want to change all of that?
You know, you had a pastor that I really enjoyed when he was here. Remember Pastor White?
Oh, one of the greatest guys ever lived, Charles White.
I loved
Charles
him.
White.
Yeah. How many years ago has that been, Dee?
I don't know, but if you didn't love Charles White, you didn't know Charles White.
That's right. That's right. Now, who was the comic that he used to? Jerry Clowers.
Yeah.
Jerry Clowers.
He would imitate him.
He would imitate.
He was probably funnier than Jerry Clowers.
he probably was. Yeah.
He died. He passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, being on city council, how long have you been on it?
10 years.
10 years.
Mm-hmm. I just reelected, starting this past August for 4 more years.
Was it four more years?
4 years, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's next, and what do you see for Cleveland as far as one of our bigger problems?
One of the bigger problems is infrastructure, and our traffic problems are horrific. Paul Huff has become a nightmare for us, and we're doing everything we can to improve that. Mouse Creek is a nightmare.
How far up?
Well, you know, at the red light at Paul Huff and Mouse Creek, we're putting a couple extra lanes there at the red light that will give people quicker access to get out to go to work. And
that's always been congested.
It's tough, and Mouse Creek is such a, Mouse Creek has a lot of curves on it, and there's not much road to Mouse Creek. I mean, it's just.
No, but like Cleveland being a great place to live, I grew up on Mouse Creek Road.
Oh my goodness!
And so, if you want a good place to live in a good town, Mouse Creek Road is it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about it that is just, it's like Cleveland. You can't explain it till you experience.
But the road, you just have the 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that have been built there. The Hunters Run and.
My understanding is that they can't widen it because the right of way is narrower. Is that right?
It is.
So how would you widen?
Here's what you'd have to do. You would have to get property from both sides. People who live there would have to sell the property to the city because it's not a state road, it's a city road.
Now, wouldn't that be hard to get everybody all the way up there?
You couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it. It'd be impossible.
But then if you got several of them and then you wanted somebody's property, then you'd have to take it by eminent domain. And you take that property by eminent domain and they're mad at you. People are mad at you. And then they take you to court and they tie it up for several years.
Plus, how would you actually afford all of it?
You couldn't.
I mean, if you said, okay, we're going to widen the road 10 feet all the way down Mouse to Hooper Gap.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford it.
No, you couldn't.
So Mouse Creek's not going to be widened, except maybe straightened up or adjusted.
Mouse Creek, we've talked about doing it
You want some more tea?
We talked about doing it
Go
in
ahead.
segments.
Go ahead.
You know,
Yeah.
we talked about doing
Pour me just a little bit.
okay.
You mean like straighten up some of the curves?
Yeah, we talked about doing
Good,
it in
thanks.
segments, and I don't know that when that's going to come. There's some priorities before that for sure, but one thing that we've done this year, you know, where Sequoia is.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, North Lee School had all those cars coming out on the highway.
Yeah.
And the people coming from McMahon County coming in the morning, somebody's going to get rear-ended.
Yeah.
Like our Brian Gallagher down at Odawall, remember?
Remember.
Okay. Well, I fought for Sequoia to get that job done. And we finally got it done this year, working together with our city manager, and Mr. Cassida was working with us on that. And finally, we got another lane, and now we don't have the cars. We might have one or two out there for a short period of time, but before we had numerous cars out on the highway stopped, and people coming over the hill, coming from
Didn't they
Tasso.
used to have a traffic director there for
Yes,
school in the morning?
yes, they used to have.
Now,
Yeah,
now you don't need that.
that's right. That's exactly
That's
right.
the big difference.
Yeah, it is, and that's really helped us with the North Lee parents. So I'm really happy we got that done. Just got it done a couple days before school started this year. Those are the things that make the city council worth serving. When you're able to just be a little part of progress and what's going on.
Of something that's really handy.
Absolutely. Something that's really meaningful. You're exactly right.
And so you think, is that one thing that drives you to serve as city councilman?
It is.
Because you obviously don't need it.
No, just to be a little piece of the action is wonderful, and that's the main reason that I enjoy serving. Sure is.
What do you plan to do now?
In what respect?
Are you going to not just work on city council? Is that your only responsibility as far as business or civic?
As far as business, you know, I have some properties that I work with, and you and I've talked about property on Ocoee Street.
Yeah.
You've been interested in possibly putting some houses over there.
What would you take for that?
Well, I told you before what I take for that. You're something else, Dee. I'm telling you.
But so you're condensing now, right?
I am. I'm more in a mode of selling than buying. Don't know that I'll buy anything more, you know, at this point. But I've been fortunate, and I feel very blessed to have some of the things that I have been involved in have turned out okay.
When you were in your 40s and 50s, would you go back to the 40 and 50-year-old Dale and say, "Turn it on, man, do more"? Or would you say, "Slow down, smell the roses"? Because me and you both know you can't do both. We say we can do both, but you can't do both. You can't go full throttle and enjoy life unless you enjoy going full throttle.
Right. Well, I've often said, you know, my life in education, my life in business, as I look back, I probably do some things differently. I've made mistakes. I do some things differently, but I've enjoyed every job I've ever had. I've enjoyed it immensely. I've enjoyed Lee. I enjoyed Bradley. I enjoyed the hotel business. I just, and once I leave, I don't look back. You know, nobody can ever say I've bothered anybody at Bradley High School after I left. When I left, I left. When I left Lee, I left. And I enjoyed both of them immensely. So to go back in the 40s and that area, I would enjoy being able to go back because I was an avid tennis player and racquetball player.
But would you do something different? Would you have worked more, or would you have played more?
Not really, because I did take some time off. You know, when vacation time came, you always had your fall break in the fall, and you had the spring break in the spring, and I'd always take advantage of those times. But I'd like to be able to play racquetball like I did one time, and tennis.
No more racquetball or tennis?
No more racquetball and tennis at this point. My knees won't let me do that.
Do you do anything exercise-wise?
I don't do as much as I should. I love to go to the pool. I was going to the pool every day for a while, and I worked at my son's house.
Okay.
And Brenda come out there and read, and I'd get in the pool for an hour every day and work out. I call that my workout, but see, it doesn't put any load on your joints and swimming. And
you've lost some weight, hadn't you?
But I lost quite a bit of weight from a couple years ago. Now I've gained some back. I not as much as I used to weigh, but I've gained a little weight back.
In your mind, are you an educator, a businessman, a hotelier, or a city councilman?
I'm a Duke's mixture.
What's a Duke's mixture?
A Duke's mixture means I do a little bit of all.
Where's that term come from?
Duke's mixture. Mm-hmm. That's just a term. That's just
an
old
term.
Slang term. You know,
like a jack of all trades.
You act like a jack of all trades.
But instead of saying that, a Duke's mixture.
What's this dog right here? Well, that dog's a Duke's mixture. It's half collie, you know.
Maybe that's like the old England, the Dukes of England. Or Ireland.
Maybe so.
I'll have to look that up. But in your mind, you're a Duke's mixture. You're all of them.
Well, I have been. And I still look at myself as an educator. I've worked with the Beta Club for a number of years. Have been the chairman of the State Beta Club Council for numerous years. And that's the kids that have the AB average. And we had a convention for them in Nashville every year. And I went to that for 35 years or more, and was actually chairman for the state council, and enjoyed that immensely. I started, along with my fellow educators, what is called the Junior Beta Club in 1989. I started a Junior Beta Club at the Marriott on Elm Hill Drive in Nashville. And we had like 290 some the first year. You know what they had last year? They had 10,000.
Golly.
And we moved from
That's more than some armies.
We moved from Elm Hill Drive to the Gaylord Opryland, and that's where they meet now. And Bradley High School last year won the outstanding choir, and they got to go to the national convention. And Glenn will know about that. But they got to go to the national convention and compete, which moves around all the time. This year they had to do it virtual because of the COVID. But I've been very much involved in that. I loved it, spent a lot of time with it, and was on the national board, which met in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We meet twice a year. And I just resigned that a couple years ago, and my assistant from Franklin, Tennessee, Mitchell Parham, took my place.
But you don't consider yourself any one of those things.
Well, I just have been a part of all those things, Dee. So I would say I still feel like an educator, and I've been a businessman, and so I still feel a part of all that. So that's why I say I'm a Duke's mixture.
And if I might add, you have been successful at all of them.
Well, you're kind. you're very kind to say that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You've been a great builder.
Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome. Thank you.